on a data and shows the spinner. When rebuffers, optimality, and joint latency that come together, watch time breaks the tie. So again, if there was is a single sentence that defines everything I wish I could express, it's YouTube users show how quality of experience matters to them by watching more. So some commercial researchers got traction a few years ago by arguing that there's a natural threshold for the number of rebuffers before viewers lose interest. But this magic number threshold in practice is use case specific and not that helpful. We don't really need a room full of people with doctorates to tell us that internet videos should buffer less. We already know. In my opinion, in practice, content and context mean a lot more than exactly how many rebuffering events a YouTube playback has. Yes?
Does it mean that when someone saw the video, you are not immediately interested by how often people will watch it? Because you need a bit of time to know how much time people watch the video.
The question is, when someone uploads a video, do you know how much watch time it will get?
We don't know, but with your approach, you say that you are interested in the watching time, basically, but you don't get this watching time before a certain time.
Someone has argued that this approach has a causality problem. Because if you're making quality of experience choices on videos that you've never seen, you actually don't know what the right choices are for them. How do you know what would be best for that video in order to make it maximize watch time? I think it's an excellent insight. And I would propose that if you get 300 hours of video every second, that what you do is you look at recent historical aggregates and you make judgments based on, let's say, what happened last week. Point totally taken that if you really knew what you were doing, you'd be able to look at the video as it came and make judgments about its well-being. And in my opinion, colleagues here who work on video transcoding and the quality of experience at the transcoding side, I think that that's how that work is done. But on the client side, what interests me, I'll get into this a little bit later, is how you gain confidence in making those choices before you deploy them system-wide. That's a great insight. Are there more questions about that or comments? The biggest change to improve QoE metrics for YouTube, besides implementing YouTube playbacks for QoE metrics, has been ABR, adaptive bitrate. And by ABR, I mean client-side selection of a target bitrate file based on measured network and client-side capabilities. That's my personal definition of ABR. In 2001, YouTube started ABR playbacks in Flash in a project codenamed Sliced Bread. There's the loaf. By using new APIs in the Flash plugin, the YouTube player could make byte range requests of media and feed the bytes into the Flash player as needed. The application was in control of format selection and read-ahead, and to some extent caching for the first time. This is what brought YouTube adaptive bitrate. Now, modern clients that use web browsers have media source extensions, which bring adaptive bitrate to HTML5. And this is in Chrome, and Internet Explorer, Safari, and Firefox, as well as in set-top boxes and game consoles and TVs. In HTML5, ABR has reduced buffering by more than 50% globally, and as much as 80% on heavily congested networks. On Android, we use a library that calls itself Exoplayer. This is open source, so you can download this now. This is built by Google engineers and YouTube too. It's in use by YouTube and Google Play and Facebook and BBC and many others. ABR in general has been good for creators and viewers because videos start faster, look and sound better more often, and play more smoothly. And viewers watch more. Here are three characters that I think are likely, the people in this room probably have extremely detailed opinions on. I'll tell you a little bit about YouTube's deployment of VP9. Encoding improvements have made many things better over time. Viewers seem to like the opportunity to choose H.264 over H.263, and they reacted positively when we introduced B-frames in H.264. Once we fixed the bug that we had a bad timestamp in our B-frames, and every time you'd seek, and the buffer would just spin for the rest of the video. Once we fixed that, B-frames worked out pretty well. People watched more and they liked it. VP9 has been a pretty big win for quality of experience metrics and for increasing watch time as a whole at YouTube. At the high end, the latest set of hardware decode-enabled 4K TVs and like phones like the Samsung S6 have enviable QoE, and they just look great. At the low end, the combination of higher quality and accessible bit rates has made both viewers and creators happy. For YouTube, VP9 brings HD and even 4K at half the bandwidth used by other codecs. I've been asked once or twice if I think VP9 is going to happen. And I laugh, because VP9 is already here. In the last year alone, YouTube users have watched more than 25 billion hours of VP9 video, billions of which would not have been played in HD without VP9's bandwidth benefits. In particular, VP9 is efficient enough to let the AVR algorithm upgrade a notch. From low def to standard def, from standard def to high. You can especially see this benefit in countries that have constrained bandwidth. Users get better video when they watch more. When working on subtle improvements to media codec settings at YouTube, you have to work hard to get measurements you can trust. I think it makes sense to start with professional evaluators, like people in this room. People in this room, in my opinion, are pretty good judges of video quality. It wouldn't make me sad to think people in this room like rough things out. Right? You have an idea for what might be better, you make a choice. I also think user studies are great. At YouTube, Damien Kelly, where are you, Damien? Woo! Damien Kelly, ladies and gentlemen, woo, woo! He ran some multiple stimuli with hidden reference and anchor mushra tests. For audio, I think the tests were totally illuminating. But after the experts leave and formal subjective evaluation is over, you still don't really know how your media changes affect QoE in production, nor if YouTube users are going to watch more because of the change. Maybe there are device incompatibilities. Maybe client-side processing demands shift enough to degrade quality in some circumstances. Perhaps a different set of data rates trigger unexpected patterns in ABR out of the open internet. For this, you need production experiments. When we first asked these sorts of questions, we figured we'd just try a plain experiment. Give some users new media, give some users old media, look at the difference. Experiments we ran this way didn't provide very useful results, though. To start, safety is an issue. Clients vary widely. It's hard to know in a purely automatic or even locally systematic way whether your change is going to be horrible somewhere. There are a lot of videos, there are a lot of viewers, there are a lot of networks, there are a lot of clients. When we do run codec experiments, we do it after manually verifying safety and with the smallest credible sample size. Secondly, content diversity adds noise. If you believe, like in grad school, they showed me McPhee's natural theory of popularity. They show this in science on your side of campus too. If you believe that stuff, you believe it's not unreasonable that some content is radically more popular than other content. And there's some things that are like popular all over the world. Let's say like Taylor Swift is an artist whose like videos are basically popular like everywhere. But how about if you're preparing videos, let's say from like Norway and Malaysia? So I went and looked earlier in the week. This was the most popular video in Norway. Notice how in Greece it plays really fast compared to 2 angry camels in a car. So this is Norway, right? Well, so how about Malaysia? We'll see if this one even plays, because I'm willing to bet it's a lot more popular in Malaysia than it is here. This is a video of a woman who is a kickboxer who, in a trick put on by her friends, beats the crap out of some other guys who think they're really tough fighters. So this is funny, this is interesting, I like this video. Way more popular in Malaysia than it is in Norway. I saw people who mentioned this in their research out in the hall. To me, this made me think, well, there must be cultural factors that have influence on media quality perception. Again, is this old news? If it's not, I'd love to see the answers. I feel like there's something interesting here. Surely people who watch videos in Malaysia have a different sense than people who watch in Norway, or maybe not. So technology and culture work together to make the situation even more noisy because of the content distribution network, as our colleague here mentioned before. A content distribution network works by having machines all over the world. So content gets closer to the people who want it. Things that are popular are closer to you. Things that are not are farther away. This is a kind of principled unfairness. But when you're looking at codec changes, this introduces some noise that maybe you haven't really accounted for. In addition to the sort of content bias, if you're comparing new video codecs with incumbent video codecs, the incumbent always has an unfair advantage because it's always cached, right? If there's a chance for the thing to be cached, it's the old thing and not the new thing. So experiments in production run this risk, right? Because what you're measuring is not fair. So when we do transcoder experiments, we try to make the experiment and the controls have the same video population, and also we force the same cache popularity. This way encoding improvements have a chance, and when they're watch time positive, they should. So we also look at other kinds of user information. Like you guys know this one? I was intrigued that...
this isn't time to use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. But
see, this one goes to 11. Did you see?
11, 11,
mostly
11.
amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's 1 louder, isn't it? It's not 10. You see, most blokes, be playing at 10. You're on 10 here, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. 1 louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
So you hear what I mean? This one goes to 11. This is totally what I was thinking yesterday during the keynote when we were talking about what does it mean when you ask people, how are things going? How are things with you? Actually, and other people who I met at dinner last night, they explained some really interesting circumstances in which asking users directly about their quality of experience provided really meaningful, actionable information. I'm sure there are circumstances that warrant this. This is super valuable. But at YouTube, I think you have to be careful about what you ask, right? Because I think that if you ask people if they want more, they pretty much just say yes. And this makes sense because I think numeric values naturally feel sort of cardinal even when they're ordinal or nominal. I mean, it's clearly true that a 286 is 100 worse than a 386 when it comes to Intel processors. But 100 of what? Anyone watch YouTube long enough to know this trick? When YouTube first introduced 720p, we were so excited that we were going to usher in a new era of quality that if you really knew what you were doing, you could add either to the top of one of the web page or to your embed URLs, you could add this and HD equals 1. And this would force 2 megabit per second, 720p. Well, I mean, this is awesome, right? I mean, I'm the kind of person who likes good things. If you tell me how to choose good, I'm definitely going to choose good because I appreciate quality. And so on my music blog, where I have 5 auto-playing videos that are 240p in size, I'm going to force them all into HD because I'm a person who loves quality. And then what do you get, right? You end up with a terrible community situation, right? The videos do not play well, they stutter, and it's pretty clear whose fault it is. It actually is YouTube's fault. So to me, what we took away from this was users really care about audio quality. They really care about video quality. If you gave them a way to force it, they would force it to the point where it destroyed all audio and video quality and network quality. And so what we did is we made new videos, lower data rates that had better targets and better compression. We took away the ability to force HD. And some people are still bitter, but in general, quality got a lot higher and people watched more. Sometimes a lack of feedback is indicative of positive user response. Years ago, YouTube began applying automatic gain control to reduce the level of bad videos. Last year, that pipeline was rebuilt. Damien Kelly in the house, ladies and gentlemen. And it was updated to reuse replay gain and was applied to many more videos. And the lack of noise, literally and figuratively, was really impressive. It took months till people even noticed this. And in my opinion, this is an enormous sign of victory. I'm not sure how many people here work on audio quality. I'm curious if you, in my opinion, audio quality, people who consider themselves experts in audio quality are among the fussiest people on the planet. Do you think this is true? No, some are very accommodating, clearly. But in my opinion, if you make a choice on YouTube that influences audio quality, the figurative phone will ring. People are paying an enormous amount of attention to this. It really, really, really matters. And so when we made a change that was this big, and no one said anything for months, until an audio blogger figured it out and wrote a testimonial. YouTube stopping the loudness war. This is a huge victory. So this is one of those sort of counterindications, like when is the lack of information your important information? Let's say right here. If you change YouTube audio quality and nobody complains, you have done a great job. This is what quality looks like. In this case, it looks like a lack of signal. I think aggregated QoE metrics do a particularly bad job of informing you when you're making good choices for users with constrained resources. For example, if you take a circumstance in which videos don't play at all, and you add adaptive bitrate, so the videos are beginning to play, then all of a sudden your metrics looks bad, right? Your metrics are not good because you include all these things which you just excluded, right? You threw away all the bad data, right? It's sort of intellectually dishonest, but you probably didn't know at first. So I'd say if you're looking at aggregates, concentrate on your outliers at the bottom. They deserve your attention even if they drag down your numbers. Also, we had an experiment a long time ago in the sliced bread era, in the flash era, where if we thought things weren't going well and the data rates, your network connectivity wasn't good, then you'd fall down to H.263, 240p. Not a good looking format. People watch less. So then we had this crazy idea. What if we let people buffer? So then we try this algorithm. It goes something like this. You start off in 360 or 480, things are good. Starts to go bad, you go down to maybe back to 360. Before you go to 240, you let the buffer drain all the way. And then the spinner goes. And then, when you can, after a second or so, then you cut to H.263. With that algorithm, people watch substantially more. So I don't know, industrial psychologists, engineering professors, why do you think that is? If you waited long enough after the buffer, you thought it was worth it? Is forcing the alternative a way to get you to take lower quality? I don't know. I don't have a theory. I was really surprised, but it totally worked. At the lowest end, quality of experience is gated by access. And as a community, I think we spend a lot of effort on making good things great. I think there's real virtue in simply making media accessible. Years ago, I broke the Flash player. About 6 years ago, I broke it for a few weeks. I made it so if you tried to pause before the video played, that the video didn't download anymore. And I got a letter, like a huge impassioned letter from someone who lived in a place where media resources were constrained and censored for political and social and religious reasons. And the person was imploring me to fix my bug. He said, I can't trust the media, I can't listen to the radio. If I want to play music, this is all I can do. But I have to go to work, and my network connectivity is so slow, it takes all day. And so I can't, what I want to do is open up 5 tabs and start these and come back 8 hours later. And now that doesn't work anymore. So again, I thought this is, to me, this is like a heart-wrenching use case. This is years ago, I still think about it. This is like people fighting for access. These will make my aggregated metrics look bad. But this is really what this is what the work's about, right? It's about access. So I think it's worth putting research into there. Years ago, YouTube experimented thinking of access with 40 kilobits per second, H.264 AAC. So it's like a slideshow, right? And the sentiment was there are parts of the world that access is so constrained that anything would be better than nothing. So what's interesting is that this was not successful. Certainly when I looked at it, I thought it looked pretty bad. But I think the places where it was intended to be most helpful, people didn't really want to watch it. They would rather wait. They would rather do things that gave them bad QoE rather than watch this. So sometimes worse is worse. So this has come up a few times. I'm curious, what factors make media good enough to use? The last thing I want to touch on is the notion of fairness. In other places I've been recently, the notion of fairness has generated these incredible arguments. So I wanted to put this at the end since I'm leaving Europe soon. I figured I could start this conflict now and then fly back to North America. I'm presuming that it won't resolve quickly. I'm curious what you think is fair when you think about analyzing videos that you get. Are they good enough to use? Is it fair to give users a video that plays everywhere, or one that's constrained by the upper limits of technical specification? If I give a video to YouTube that's 4K, is it fair to say, you can only watch this if you have a 4K TV? Or is it fair to give it down to 144p so people can watch it on their phone? Which one of those is more fair? Is it fair to help users reduce their bandwidth costs? I can tell you're on a mobile network, I'll give you lower data, even though you could totally handle it. Is that fair to users? Is it fair to network operators? Is it more fair to have more configuration options? Someone had mentioned this. Let me choose. I know this video is good for high data rate. This video is good for low data rate. It's for me to choose. I'm the user. Or is it the uploader's choice? Which one of these is more fair? Is it fair to reduce bandwidth or to increase consumer engagement commitment? I don't really have an answer to any of these questions. I'm interested in how this community conceptualizes measures and advocates for particular versions of fairness. So how do YouTube users show what quality of experience means to them? They vote with their attention by putting their effort into making and uploading videos they want to watch, by spending more time watching videos. They complain when they have an experience they don't like, and they're silent when changes meant to be smooth are. Thanks.